My name is Grace Whitman. I am 36 years old, a single mother of two incredible daughters, Ava, who is 11, and Riley, who just turned 9. We live in Asheville, North Carolina, in a modest 3-bedroom house on a quiet street lined with dogwoods. It's not much, but it's ours, and after everything we've been through, I've learned to value peace over perfection. Their father, my husband, Ben, died in a car accident 4 years ago. He was on his way to pick up cupcakes for Riley's 5th birthday party when it happened. I still remember that phone call, the way everything around me blurred into silence. Since that day, it's just been the 3 of us. We've had our fair share of messy mornings, tearful nights, and makeshift dinners. But we've built something strong, something real. My girls are the kindest little humans I know. Ava loves science and drawing comics. Riley has the biggest heart and an obsession with building tiny houses out of cardboard. They fight over snacks and giggle late into the night, but they always have each other's backs. And mine, too. I wasn't looking for love. I didn't feel like anything was missing. But when you're raising kids alone, there's a part of you that wonders if you'll ever get to be more than mom again. If someone will ever see you, not as a project or a burden, but as a woman worth standing beside. So when someone finally did, I let my guard down. I didn't know then that opening my door would mean defending it all over again. His name was Ethan Caldwell. We met at a regional small business summit. He was giving a talk on adaptive leadership, and I was there on behalf of the design firm I contract with. He was charming in that easy, practiced way, confident but not overbearing. He struck up a conversation at the coffee table during a break, and before I knew it, we were sharing stories about growing up in the South and comparing favorite barbecue joints. Ethan was 38, divorced, no kids. He worked in mid-level management for a logistics company and had recently relocated from Atlanta. I remember thinking he had kind eyes. He asked thoughtful questions. He listened without checking his phone. After a few more run-ins at networking events, he asked me out for coffee. I said yes, not really expecting anything, but willing to see what it felt like to sit across from someone who didn't ask me if my kids were potty trained or what brand of juice I bought. That first coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into walks. And then one night, I found myself laughing at a joke he made, and realized I hadn't laughed like that in years. He didn't push to meet the girls right away, which I appreciated. But after a couple of months, I brought it up. He seemed genuinely interested, asked about their personalities, their routines, what made them tick. When he finally met them, he came with coloring books for Riley and a small sketchpad for Ava. He told them they could teach him how to draw. I watched from the kitchen as they sat together on the rug, and for a moment, I allowed myself to believe this could work. He was patient. Respectful. He'd pick them up little treats when he stopped by. He remembered Ava's spelling test and Riley's recital. I'd catch him reading parenting blogs on his phone sometimes and smile. I thought, maybe this is what starting again looks like. But looking back now, maybe I mistook effort for intention. The first red flag didn't wave. It whispered. It started with little comments. One evening, Ethan was helping clean up after dinner. He looked around the dining room and said, "This place has a lot of charm. But wouldn't it feel more open if we knocked out that corner cabinet?" I laughed it off, told him that cabinet came with the house and held every glitter project the girls had ever made. He smiled, but there was a note in his voice when he said, "We could always start fresh." Then came the suggestions. Rearranging the living room to feel less cluttered. Swapping out the beanbags for a sectional. Repainting Ava's hand-painted bookshelf a more neutral tone. He framed it as wanting to help, to make the house feel more like ours. But to me, it started to feel like he wanted to erase what had come before him. Still, I brushed it off. Everyone has opinions, right? I was just being sensitive. But then he started bringing up his brother, Travis. The first time Ethan mentioned him, we were out on the porch. He said Travis was in a rough patch after a divorce, and some bad luck with work. Apparently, Travis had been staying with their parents in Charlotte, but it was getting tense. Ethan said, eventually he'll need a real place to land. He didn't say more, and I didn't ask. It felt far away. A few weeks later, it didn't. Ethan invited Travis over for dinner. I agreed, hesitant, but willing. The girls were polite, excited even. But Travis was disappointing. He showed up 20 minutes late, reeking of weed and stale cologne. He barely acknowledged Ava and Riley, answering their questions with shrugs or grunts. At dinner, he ranted about how life was unfair, how women always took advantage, how no one gave him a real shot. Ethan laughed nervously, trying to smooth things over. "He's just venting," he said as we cleaned up. "He's been through a lot." I nodded but couldn't shake the heaviness in my chest. The next morning, Riley asked, "Is Uncle Travis going to live with us?" I stopped in my tracks. "Why would you ask that, sweetheart?" She shrugged. He said maybe. I asked Ethan, and he confirmed it casually. "It's just an idea, just until he finds work. He could use the spare room." The spare room. The one with my desk, the art shelves, the memory boxes. I said no. He said, "Let's not make it a big deal." But it already was. After that night, something in the air shifted, subtle at first but unmistakable. Ethan didn't push the Travis conversation again right away, but he began dropping breadcrumbs. The house could really use more structure. The girls are sweet, but a little discipline wouldn't hurt. He even suggested a chore chart to help them learn responsibility. I believe in responsibility. My girls clean up after themselves, say thank you, help set the table. But Ethan wasn't talking about helping. He was talking about control. A week later, he brought home a catalog for furniture. Not just a new couch, but a complete makeover plan for the living room. "We should start making it feel more adult," he said, flipping pages. "This place still looks like it belongs to kids." I told him, kindly but firmly, that I liked our home the way it was. He frowned. "It just feels chaotic sometimes. I want a place where I can relax." I looked around the framed drawings on the wall, the worn beanbags in the corner, the Lego castle Riley refused to dismantle because it's a hotel now. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and for the first time I saw that wasn't enough for him. Then came the question that made everything stop. One morning, Ava asked, "Mom, what's a boarding school?" I was buttering toast. I froze. "Why do you ask, honey?" Ethan said they're for kids who want to go somewhere fun and learn in a big castle. I felt the breath leave my lungs. That night, after the girls were in bed, I asked him, calmly. He didn't deny it. In fact, he leaned in. "I've just been thinking long term. The girls are growing up. Boarding school could give them structure, independence, a world-class education. It would free up space. And..." I cut him off. "Free up space for what?" He didn't flinch. "Well, if Travis moves in, he'd need a room." It hit me like a slap. He wanted to send my daughters away so his brother, his 35-year-old, unemployed, unmotivated brother, could live comfortably in their home. He saw my silence as hesitation. "It's not forever," he said. "Just a few years. Travis needs stability. You and I could finally have time together. Travel. You deserve that." I stared at him. "You're asking me to send my kids away so you can play house with your brother?" He sighed, like I was missing the point. "Grace, it's about building a future. All of us. All of us. Except the two girls who built this future with me from scratch. Except the only people who had never left. Except the reason I woke up every morning with fight still in my chest." I didn't respond that night. I went upstairs, kissed Ava and Riley on their foreheads, and sat alone in the hallway until the sun came up. A few days passed. Ethan acted like nothing had happened, like the words boarding school had never left his mouth. He still showed up with coffee in the mornings, still offered to cook dinner. But the house felt colder now, like a stranger had opened our front door and moved the furniture when we weren't looking. I was quieter, watching more closely, not because I was scared, because I was finally seeing. Then, one night after dinner, Ethan said we needed to talk. He had that same calm voice he used when talking to clients on the phone, measured, strategic. He sat across from me at the kitchen table. "I've given this a lot of thought," he began. "I know you're not comfortable with the idea of the girls going to boarding school, but I think you're being emotional, not logical." My hands tightened around my glass. He went on. "You've been doing this alone for years, Grace. You're tired. I can see it. Imagine what a break could do for you. And for them, those programs are elite. They'd thank you someday." I said nothing. "And Travis, he's not a bad person. He just needs a reset. We can give him that, but not in this current setup. It's not sustainable. It's too crowded." Then came the final blow. "If you want us to move forward to build the life we've talked about, I need you to meet me halfway. Either we put the girls in a program that benefits everyone, or we rethink everything." I blinked. "You're saying if I don't send Ava and Riley away, you'll call off the engagement?" He nodded. "This isn't an ultimatum. It's about compatibility, family values." My voice was steady. "And my kids aren't part of your values." "They're part of your past," he said too quickly. "But we have to build something new." That was it. That one sentence ended everything. I stood up, walked to the sink, and turned my back to him. You need to leave, Ethan. Grace. No. He stayed quiet. I turned back around. You say I'm tired? You're right. But not from parenting. From pretending you were something you're not. From thinking love means compromise at the expense of the people who matter most to me. They're not even trying to connect with me. They're children. They don't owe you anything. You want trust. Earn it. He looked wounded. You're choosing them over me. I nodded once, without hesitation. He stood, grabbed his keys, and left without another word. I didn't cry. I sat down at the table he once said looked too childlike, and ran my fingers across the stickers Riley had pressed into the wood years ago. One read, "My family is my forever." She was right. And no one was going to make me forget that. The days that followed were quiet. Not the kind of silence that feels peaceful, but the kind that comes after a storm when everything is still standing, but nothing feels the same. Ethan texted once, "I hope you come around. I'm still here." I didn't reply. Instead, I focused on the girls. We went out for ice cream on a Tuesday night just because. Ava taught Riley how to draw noses for cartoon characters. We had popcorn for dinner one evening, and watched old movies in pajamas. There was laughter again, unfiltered, unmonitored, the kind that filled the house like it used to. Still, I needed to close the chapter. So I invited Ethan over one final time. He arrived like nothing had happened. Button-down shirt, a bottle of wine in hand, even flowers. It felt performative, too late and too polished. We sat in the living room. The same space he once said looked like a daycare. "I wanted to see you," he said, "talk things through." We both said things we didn't mean. "I meant everything I said," I replied calmly. He blinked. "I've had a few days to think," I continued. "And I want to be very clear. There will never be a version of my life where my daughters are sent away to make room for your brother." He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand gently. "You say you want to build something new. That's fine. Go build it with someone who fits your blueprint. But I've already built a home, Ethan. I'm not tearing it down to fit your design." He leaned forward. "You're throwing away a future we could have had." "No," I said, standing up. "I'm protecting the one I already have." There was a pause. "You're making a mistake," he said finally, bitter in his tone now. "No," I replied, holding the door open for him. "I almost did, but I caught it just in time." He stared at me for a moment, like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him. And maybe he didn't? Maybe for the first time I saw her too. Grace. The woman who didn't beg. Who didn't compromise her kids for comfort. Who knew what love was and what it wasn't. He walked out without saying goodbye. I closed the door behind him. And this time it stayed closed. After Ethan left, there was no dramatic collapse, no angry voicemails, no desperate pleas. Just silence. And in that silence something beautiful grew. Peace. The kind that doesn't need to be earned or explained. The kind that settles into your bones when you finally stop apologizing for protecting what matters. A few weeks later, I took the girls on a weekend trip to the Outer Banks. Nothing fancy, just a tiny rental cottage near the dunes, sand in our shoes, salty air in our hair. We collected shells, ate grilled cheese at a roadside cafe, and built sandcastles with plastic cups and spoons. That first night, as we sat wrapped in blankets watching the waves, Riley leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "I'm glad it's just us again." I kissed the top of her head. "Me too, baby." Back home, I cleared out the guest room Ethan once wanted for Travis. I turned it into a reading nook for Ava and a tiny art studio for Riley. We painted the walls lavender and strung up fairy lights. It became their safe space, our space. No longer a room of compromise, but a declaration of who belonged. Ethan reached out one more time a month later. He asked if I regretted ending things. I didn't respond. Because the truth was, I didn't. Not even for a second. People think revenge always looks like shouting, slamming doors, or dramatic exits. But sometimes, it's a quiet refusal. A refusal to shrink. A refusal to hand over your joy, your boundaries, your children's safety to someone who never planned to protect it. And that's what I chose. Not bitterness. But clarity. Not drama. But dignity. Not him. But us. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for sitting with this story, and for honoring the weight of what it means to choose yourself, to choose your children, to choose peace. What happened with Ethan didn't break me, it revealed me. For years, I believed that love meant compromise, that being a good partner meant bending a little more each time. I told myself that flexibility was strength. But here's what I learned the hard way: bending becomes breaking when you do it too long in silence. You can't love someone into respecting your children. You can't decorate over manipulation. You can't send your family to boarding school just to make a man feel more at home. Home isn't where someone demands space. It's where people protect it. To every woman listening who's ever felt torn between romance and responsibility, please hear me when I say this. You are not selfish for saying no. You are not difficult for defending your peace. You are not dramatic for trusting your gut. The right person will not ask you to abandon the people you love to make space for the people they tolerate. They will not ask your children to shrink so their brother can stretch. They will not disguise control as compromise. They will show up, quietly and completely, and choose to build beside you, not bulldoze behind you. And if they don't, you walk away, you close the door, and you don't apologize for it. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't yelling or fighting. It's building a life they never get to touch. A life full of safety, of laughter, of rooms filled with hand-drawn art and bedtime stories and popcorn dinners. That's the life I chose. That's the life I protected. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever faced a moment like mine, know that you're not alone. And you're not weak for walking away. You're brave for choosing the harder path. Because dignity doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it just comes with silence and peace. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe if this message meant something to you. And always remember, love should never ask you to send your children away.